Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
You're watching Nedbank Business Watch. It is a Wednesday. Very good afternoon to you and welcome to the program. We hope that you are having a great day. We are halfway into the day and we certainly hope that you're going to enjoy the insights that we will be providing for you on the program today. My name is Sifiso Male and I'm with Lungelele Makakula.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. Spies, how are you?
Doing all right. Can't complain.
I'm good. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. This is Nedbank Business Watch. Do watch us on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Very good afternoon and welcome to the program. The purpose of the Nedbank Corporate and Business Banking is to do good for business. And part of that means supporting businesses from the ground until they grow. Today's focus will be the franchise business banking. Relationship Manager at Nedbank, Zibu joins me in studio to talk about the benefits of partnering with Nedbank for franchise banking and the financial services provided by the bank, such as property loans or startup loans. Do stay tuned for this interview. And then later, we'll be joined by Sifiso Nsibande from the Treasury Department for today's market analysis.
Of course, we also do have Lwazi Mamba, the Chief Executive of the Eswatini National Youth Council, who is going to help us understand as well as anticipate the much and highly anticipated youth report, State of the Youth report from the Eswatini National Youth Council that is set to be unveiled this week, tomorrow, by the Prime Minister, Russell Miso Dlamini. Stay tuned for that conversation as well. We're also in discussion with our economist, Sonelis Bia, as we continue to unpack more business developments happening in the kingdom of Eswatini. Otherwise, per usual, we are going to start with our business news.
Yeah.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Welcome back. This is Nedbank Business Watch, and now for our business news.
Coming in from the Ministry of Finance, where Finance Minister Neil Reichenberg says government will continue to drive sustainable economic growth by creating an environment where the private sector can thrive and contribute significantly to national development. He also emphasized the importance of the private sector as a key engine of job creation, of investment, as well as economic expansion. He also noted that the country's economy has been growing over the years and outlined government efforts to address fiscal challenges that include managing the wage bill and reducing the deficit. The minister made these remarks during the OPEC Fund Development Forum in Vienna, Austria. This is during a discussion on development and economic transformation.
We focused on trying to get our image better as a country, and over a few years, And kind of about 4 years ago, we started getting it right, where our Article 4s, there was a list of things. Wage bill issues, we sorted those out. Fiscal deficit, brought it down from 7.5 to about 2. Being on a sustainable path now, SACU volatility, we put a stabilization fund in place. A few different things like that, even just political image, dealt with a few matters like that, or misunderstandings rather. And that then meant that a lot of our image really changed, and we changed from a country that will generally be seen as really not investable to investable. Moody's gave us an upgrade. Our bonds on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange went from junk status to investment grade. And so all of that then meant now that all of a sudden the world's finances open to Eswatini. So what happens then, our GDP growth has now moved from an average of 2 to an average of about 5. So for this is our third year, about a 5% growth, and was hopefully trending upwards. But that now creates two things. Number one, the private sector has now got access to funds, which they never had before. And so all of a sudden there's new growth in the private sector space. But at the same time, government has got access to a whole lot more funds they're not used to. And so now the temptation, because you got desperate needs as a country, things you desperately need to do. But the temptation to now move off the sustainable path is brutally difficult to maintain. And that's the trick for a country. So when you get to that place to still maintain the sustainability, to continue to making sure your private sector can continue to grow as they need to, is very tricky. So as a country battling with that and working on it. But if you ask me, where's the challenge? That's where the challenge lies.
161 applications from local startups have been received from the Startup World Cup, which is scheduled to take place in the United States of America on the 6th of November this year. Royal Science and Technology Park Communications Officer Senzo Malaza says the strong response underscores the growing enthusiasm among local entrepreneurs to showcase their innovations and compete on a global stage.
From those 161, we hope to shortlist at least 10 by the 1st of July, so that we are ready for the pitching session, which will be held on the 25th of July, and then we get ready to send our winner to the Silicon Valley in the United States of America, where they will now be competing with the rest of the world for a total prize money of $1 million. What we're looking for as we'll be shortlisting is definitely innovation in whatever solutions that they are coming up with, but we're also looking for solutions that are solving real problems. They may be local problems, but they also have to be scalable. So I'll make an example. If someone is coming with an innovation that is looking at solving or addressing our current problem, which is foot and mouth disease, but it is something that should be able to go beyond our borders and maybe address other issues or other societal issues. So we are looking across all sectors of the economy. It could be in agriculture, it could be in energy, it could be in anything. But as long as there's innovation, there's scalability, and there's business, and it's solving a real problem. And we can assure all the applicants that by the 1st of July and maybe latest the 2nd of July, they would have received feedback from ourselves to say these are the shortlisted 10, which will then be pitching to local judges who are independent of the Royal Science and Technology Park, but also to those 10 that will be pitching on the 25th of July. We won't be throwing out the other innovations. They will go through the incubation program within the RSTP, because we believe, much as there is going to be one winner, but all the innovations are very critical, and we would like to explore the possibility of growing them into viable businesses.
All right, and that's it for our business news. It's 9 minutes after 2.
The State of the Youth report in conversation with Chief Executive for the Eswatini National Youth Council, Lozi Mamba, after the break. Stay with us. welcome back. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. Thank you so much for staying with us. The Eswatini National Youth Council is expected to deliver the findings of the State of the Youth report on Thursday this week. Now, this comes at a time when the latest labor force survey indicates some movement in the employment landscape, with the official unemployment rate now standing at 33.5%, which is down from 35.4% in 2023. Now, this suggests that more Eswatini are entering the labor market, while youth unemployment has also declined from 56% to 52.2%. But exactly what do these shifts really tell us about the reality that young people are facing on the ground? Are we seeing a meaningful expansion of opportunity, or simply small gains that mask deeper structural challenges? And as these numbers improve on paper, is the quality and sustainability of employment keeping pace? As we build up to the official launch of the report, the big question remains: what will the State of the Youth report reveal beyond the headlines? And how should these findings shape policy and action moving forward? We are joined by the ENYC's Chief Executive, Lwazi Mamba, who is going to help us really unpack what we can expect from this critical report. Thank you so much for your time, Vulini. We appreciate having you on the program this afternoon. Perhaps maybe we get into the report itself. What was the motivation, for producing the state of the report right now, and why is it important right now for Eswatini's development journey?
Thank you, Siso. Good afternoon to you and to the listeners. Thank you for having me this afternoon. And first, I'd just like to commend the Minister of Labour and Social Security for the report that, for the survey that you just alluded to when you're making your introduction to this session. We were listening to the minister when he was making his presentation or his remarks, and we do take note of the movement in terms of the youth unemployment and the unemployment at large at Eswatini. And we really commend the efforts that the Ministry of Labour Social Security is doing to keep the country informed in terms of the movements with regards to labour at national level. As you are talking about the State of the Youth report, you will remember that we are under the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs, and we are guided by the National Youth Policy. And you'll also remember that as Eswatini, we are also part of the African Union, which established the Youth Charter in 2006 as a way to really bring on board all African member states to make sure that the issues of young people are on the table, they are discussed, and there are programs and policies that are put in place to address all the challenges that young people are facing at Africa continent level. And the African Union also in 2011 and also in 2019, they started what they call the State of African Youth Report. This is a report that really demonstrates their commitment in as far as youth development at continental level. And so as the Kingdom of Eswatini, being a member of the African Union, we are also committed to the principles of the African Youth Charter, and we are also committed to making sure that we support the young people to make sure that they make meaningful participation in growing the economy of Eswatini. So hence Eswatini then has got a ministry, as you already know, the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Youth Affairs has got some policies guiding government ministries, development partners at national level, civil society, and the youth-led organization and youth-serving organization in as far as how they need to go about in assisting young people to develop themselves, to include them in the mainstream of the economy, to assist them with health issues, to assist them with education and training. So that is why the ministry saw it fit to align itself with the African Union in developing what we call the State of the Youth Report. This is a report that we first developed in the year 2015 with support from the UNFPA. And I must say that UNFPA is the one that also was working with the African Union to develop the first report of the African Union, which was developed in 2011. So Eswatini followed suit to develop the report, and it is a report that really demonstrates the progress that is made at national level with regards to the implementation of the national youth policy. So all 9 policies that are listed in the national youth policy are reported in the State of the Youth report. And all policymakers, development partners, and all stakeholders at country level have got that leeway or that access to the State of the Youth report. And it's a report which government uses to see how far implementation of the the national youth policy has gone, what challenges, new challenges coming up that are faced by young people, and what recommendations are young people bringing on board, bringing up for the attention of the different stakeholders, including government and development partners. So we are happy that this is the second report that we will be launching on Thursday. And we've got the leadership of the Prime Minister to demonstrate that it is a very, very important policy document that needs to be given that kind of recognition at government level to make sure that we all use this report to make informed decisions when we are formulating policies, to make informed decisions when we are formulating programs and projects that are aimed at supporting youth. And in fact, it also highlights the importance of making sure that all policies and programs that are formulated by government, civil society, and every stakeholder, should make sure that the young people are part of the agenda, because we are facing very, very serious challenges in the youth sector, with 52% of young people not employed, and with 36% of young people not in employment, not in education or training. Really, that demonstrates that everyone needs to put their hands on the deck to make sure that we work together to develop young people.
Yeah, maybe getting on the figures now, the latest figures show that youth unemployment has fallen from 56 to 52.2%. Marginal. Should young people view this as a genuine turning point, or is there more nuance behind the numbers?
So, 52%, in as much as we appreciate the movement from 56% to 52% from 2023 to date, we really commend that reduction in youth unemployment. But practically speaking, when you talk about 52% youth unemployed, that is still a very, very big and significant number. That talks to the day-to-day life and challenges, hardships that young people are facing every day. That talks to over 50% of young people who are carrying certificates, graduate certificates from our different tertiary institutions, universities, and colleges, but still looking for a job today. And so we really have got to work harder than what we have done over the past 3 years since the last survey, to make sure that going forward, we really improve, or we really increase the number of young people that we enroll in job opportunities. And we are happy that we are working on what we call the Youth Connect Eswatini Charter, which is very ambitious to make sure that we bring on board different partners, development partners, the government as well, to invest in programs that are aimed at empowering young people, programs that are aimed at developing skills for young people and opening job opportunities and empowering them with entrepreneurship, so that by 2030 we at least have got reduced numbers in as far as unemployment is concerned. So this is a program that we are still working on, just validated, I think it was last week, and we are also engaging with different partners to ensure that we mobilize resources. We are aiming for about 200 million emalangeni investment by local partners to make sure that by 2030, we have got a significant reduction with regards to youth unemployment.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your insights. We also appreciate how you make sure to break down every question that I submit to you into a nitty-gritty and in a way that is very comprehensible. Thank you. Lwazi Mamba, the Chief Executive of the Eswatini National Youth Council, on the much-anticipated State of the Youth report that is set to be launched tomorrow by His Excellency, the Right Honourable Prime Minister. Sanele Sibia is on standby for our discussion after the break. Do stay with us for that one.
Egameni lahulumende wembube kanye nesizwe sonke seMaswati, ngithanda ukuhalelisela ingonyama Mswati wesithathu ngeminyaka lengama-40 isesihlalweni sebukhosi. Kule minyaka lengama-40 ingonyama ihole isizwe seMaswati ngelithando nangenhlakanipho. Buholi bayo ingonyama buphinze babonakala ngekuthi live libe ingcenye yethi inhlangano temhlaba lapho khona kuphakanyiswa uthula nentuthuko. Ubuholi bayo inkosi bubeke embili emasiko leselive laseSwatini lidume ngawo umhlaba wonke. Kule minyaka ingonyama isesihlalweni live lichubekele embili kutentuthuko netakhiwo letinkulu, kutemfundo, kutempilo, kutekulima nenhlala kahle eMaswati. Sibonga inkosi yelizulu lesibekele ingonyama esihlalweni. Sithandaza njalo ukuthi uNkulunkulu ambusise wekunene ngenhlakanipho yobuholi nangempilo lenze bayethe wena waphakathi.
Right now, the 9th Southern African Customs Union SACU Summit of Heads of State will be held on the 26th of June 2026 in South Africa, and is going to bring together regional leaders at a time when economic cooperation and fiscal dependencies remain critical across member states, with SACU contributing 11.9%, that is equivalent to approximately 33% of the national budget of slightly over 36 billion. Attention is firmly, 36 billion Malangeni. Now, attention is firmly on the importance of these revenue flows and their impact on national economies within the Union. As the region continues to navigate changing global economic conditions, questions around trade cooperation, revenue distribution, and long-term economic resilience remain central to the broader SACU agenda. Our economist, Sanele Sibia, joins us now to really understand and give us an analysis of the significance of this summit, as well as the key issues that may come into focus. Sanele, thank you so much for your time. Perhaps for viewers who may not really, appreciate the significance of this SACU summit, what is it really, and why is it important in this particular time?
Thank you, Mr. Nxumalo. Good afternoon to you, and also good afternoon to our viewers. So as you know, that Eswatini is part of the Southern African Customs Union, which is actually the oldest customs union in the globe, formulated in 1910, thereabout. So what this summit does is it's actually the epitome of decision making within SACCO. That is where we are going to see heads of state, discussing issues such as the strategic plan within SACCO, looking at global developments, and then also looking at how we integrate within, other regional blockings such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which again would have market impacts in terms of where the direction of trade for Eswatini. And then also, as we know that there is the way that SACCO countries share money is determined based on a SACCO revenue sharing formula. And as we discuss these AfCFTA opportunities, movements towards commerce, movements towards other blocks, that in a way in itself is going to affect that formula, how the revenues are shared, and also what each country gets. And then also remember that we are now talking of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and Eswatini is part of SACCO, and mostly the way we interact and get to participate in multiple regional blocks is actually through SACCO. So by virtue of being within a customs union, Eswatini becomes somewhat shackled in terms of being able to come up with a country-specific relation, more especially when it comes to the imports coming into the free trade area, coming from the free trade area into the customs union. You know that in a customs union, you must have that common external tariff, which somehow means you must have a unified stand as a region in terms of how we are going to treat certain commodities coming through. So now this is a very pivotal moment where SACCO in itself is going to be applying themselves to these changing global dynamics, and also how it's going to affect the dynamics and welfare within SACCO countries, both the smaller and the bigger countries. So it is quite a pivotal discussion, Mr. Nxumalo, and this is the epitome of decision making within SACCO. So whatever decisions are made here, that's where they get to be, extended to and get to be implemented by the Secretariat.
And with SACCO receipts accounting for roughly a third of Eswatini's national budget, just how vulnerable does that make the country, just in terms of, the changes in the regional revenue sharing formula?
So yes, Mr. Nxumalo, the revenue sharing formula is one of the sticky points that mostly smaller countries within SACCO always have to contend with, and given the dominance of the bigger partner being South Africa, so smaller countries find themselves having to always shift and make do with whatever formula has been presented. And also at the same time, you find that the bigger countries within the customs union will always be complaining of this over-dependence, because, they do feel they're doing quite a lot, compared to the smaller countries, and then the smaller countries get these revenues. So it becomes one of those political sticking points which must always be spoken to. And if you recall, every change in the SACCO revenue sharing formula, if you go back to 2002, that's where we saw some changes in the revenue sharing formula. And, we saw smaller countries taking a bit of a knock in terms of the revenues that they were getting. And right now, if you look at the fact that for Eswatini, SACCO right now, we're getting around 11.9 billion coming through from SACCO. That's approximately 33% of our national budget. So now, if you are messing around with that 33%, it tends to leave you more vulnerable and more exposed to external changes and shifts in that revenue sharing formula. So right now we have come down to 33%, but earlier on in the past decade, you would find that SACCO in the 2010s, it was contributing around 60% of the national GDP. So the lifeline of most SACCO countries, that's being Eswatini and Lesotho, really is, and Namibia to a certain extent, really is contingent on where SACCO goes. And the those are the sticking points that we expect to come out of or that summit, you know, because we know there's always that disconnect between the smaller countries and the bigger countries in terms of whether they'll be able to survive. And we've heard, you know, coming out of the grapevine, some countries saying that they want to pull out of SACO. It feels like it's not benefiting them. So we are seeing those dynamics of smaller countries and bigger countries. And, you know, the smaller countries, given that vulnerability, cannot afford at this point to see SACO doing and decline.
Yeah, and should Eswatini view SACO revenues as a reliable fiscal anchor, or should they be treated as a temporary windfalls that require greater economic diversification?
I think when you look at what has been happening on the ground in terms of the SACO receipts and the amount in which they contribute to the fiscus year on year, we've seen that figure going down. Now, that comes out of deliberate action from, if you remember, in the 2013s, 2014s, there was a document called the Fiscal Adjustment Roadmap, and then there was also a document called the Economic Recovery Strategy. Both those documents cited over-reliance on SACO revenues, and the country then came up with strategic, pillars and anchors to ensure that we are reducing that reliance on those SACO revenues because they are volatile by nature. And, you know, there are these shifts that may be bigger in terms of how do we move in terms of sharing of the revenue sharing in itself, and also in terms of are we being able to diversify out of SACO and being able to get more revenues coming elsewhere? So yes, as a country, we've taken deliberate actions to reduce the over-reliance on SACO revenue. So right now we are talking of 30%. There was a time where it was above 60%. And what we're looking for is a situation where you would bring down the figure significantly lower, such that even when you have a shock in the trade balance and in the bigger scheme of things, you're still able to keep Eswatini humping and pumping and producing good economic outcomes and being able to pay suppliers and pay its dues, for the government. So now that's where we are as a country. We understand that, yes, trade receipts are going to be a very big part of how we mobilize resources. But if you can mobilize a lot of your resources internally through your taxes and your collection of taxes domestically, then you are reducing your exposure, your external exposure to external forces. And then we've also seen the establishment of the SACO Revenue Stabilization Fund. Now, that's a fund that underscores and understands that we are seeing that SACO revenues in themselves, they are very volatile. That means they fluctuate with the markets and with whatever conditions they are out there. So you do need to have this buffer that you can always draw on as a country to say when the revenues are below what we projected and below what we need as a country, we can get from that fund to ensure that we are able to fund the business of government and keep the economy going. But that's a transient type of mechanism. What we need is to ramp up on domestic revenue mobilization and growing local businesses so that we are getting more revenues mobilized domestically to ensure that the country is less exposed and less vulnerable to such external shocks.
Really excited to see, the key economic issues that the heads of state are going to prioritize at this year's summit beyond just the customary discussions on revenue distribution. Sanele, thank you for your insights. We always appreciate having you on the program. We'll go for a net break now. We'll be back shortly with the program.
right, so welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. The purpose of the Nedbank Corporate and Business Banking is to do good for business, and part of that means supporting businesses from the ground until they grow. Today's focus will be the franchise business banking. Relationship Manager at Nedbank, Zibu Tembe, joins me to talk about the benefits of partnering with Nedbank for franchise banking and the financial services provided by the bank, such as property loans or startup loans. A very good afternoon, Nozi. Thank you for coming through. It's been a while. Welcome back.
It's been a while. I've missed you guys.
Yeah, welcome back. We missed you too. So, yeah, Nozi, why does Nedbank Eswatini see franchising as a strong model for Eswatini entrepreneurs, versus starting from scratch?
So Nedbank, and I'm sure you've heard this, you've even said this a couple of times, Nedbank Eswatini believes in using financial expertise to do good, and this is for all businesses. So in corporate and business banking, we try to make sure that our version of doing good is growing businesses from the ground up and seeing them mature and seeing them be sustained. And with franchise being a specialized business model, Nedbank then wants to tailor a solution or solutions specifically for franchise clients so that we can see them grow, see them employ Maswati, and see them be sustainable.
Yeah, you're all about seeing Maswati entrepreneurs grow.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about an ideal profile, for the franchise borrower. Do you look at their age, their credit score? What is it exactly that you look for? And also, what's the checklist? What documents should they have in order to qualify for the franchise banking with Nedbank?
So with franchises, particularly what we look at is the bigger group. So the franchise that you're buying into, that brand is normally very strong, and that helps quite a lot. And as for you as an individual, you just have to have good business acumen. You have to be of working age, and you just need to show that you are able to sustain and build a business and then partner with us as Nedbank. In terms of documentation, it's your ordinary business documentation, your Form Js, your Form Cs, all the likes. We send you a checklist with all of that. You submit everything you need to submit, you open an account with us, and then we start to then assess what the value of your business is expected to be, and we can finance the entire amount that you want and collateralize 50% of the expected enterprise value of that business.
Speaking of the loan that the franchise borrower gets, what's the typical range of the loan? Is it 100K, millions?
So it depends. It depends on the franchise itself, because there's so many different types of franchises. There's filling stations, there's fast food joints. So it really depends on what kind of business or what kind of franchise you're buying into. And then your value to start that business up is linked to that. So it's difficult to say whether it's 100,000 or it's 10 million, because it really does range.
Yeah, and then there's repayment terms. Yeah. Nazi, if you loan them 2 million malangeni, how would they pay it back? What are the terms? The interest. Take us through that.
So Nedbank, what's really good about Nedbank is we really negotiate and have a conversation with the client. So if we're loaning you X amount, looking at your affordability, we will try and structure it. But typically, we allow you to pay off that loan for up to 10 years or so. And as long as the collateral is good and you can demonstrate affordability and payability of that loan, we are able to then have a conversation with you about how we can repay that.
Okay, so is there a grace period before repayment, the repayment starts?
Yes, we can factor that into the agreement as well.
All right. So what can be used as collateral, or security? Is it the franchise property, the assets? What can be used as security for the bank?
So what Nedbank does is we look at the value of the enterprise. So you want to open, maybe let me use an example of a franchise that isn't in the country so that it doesn't look biased. Okay. So let's say you want to open a McDonald's, right? Nedbank will assign a certain value to that McDonald's based on our own internal assessments, and then we will take 50% of that value and use that as collateral. Okay. And then we'll finance however much you want in financing, using that the 50% of that value as collateral.
All right. So there are many businesses, some have failed, some have been successful. There's a business that has been there's a business owner that was blacklisted 3-5 years ago, and they've been cleared now, and they want to apply for the franchise loan. Can they qualify? Do they qualify to apply?
They do qualify.
Okay.
In fact, maybe I can even make.
But isn't that a risk for the bank?
So it is a risk.
Yeah.
We know there's risks associated with lending money in general, and we also know that people make mistakes and learn and then grow. So I think our approach to banking in general, not even just franchising, is that if a client has been blacklisted, during the time that they're blacklisted, yes, they are unable to access our financing. But once you've cleared that and moved past that, the hope and the belief is that whatever mistakes, if any, have been learned, and we can build something sustainable. So we're happy to join in partnership with you and then grow that business with you. Okay. Also, what we're trying to do a bit more of as a bank with our clients is we get to see different clients, different businesses, different structures, models every day. So as you are growing your business and becoming more successful, our job is to try and also act as an advisor for you, financial advisor that is, to just guide on small things, guide on savings, guide on now your business is growing. What about expansion? Now your business is growing. Do you have enough reserves? You know, those kinds of conversations to make sure that the businesses are sustainable, because their success as a party that has put in money, their success is our success too. So we want to make it a bit more holistic than just giving you money and saying, go and fly. We want to walk the journey with you.
Oh, that's great. So do you offer mentorship or financial training, or even help them with business plans?
Yes, so Nedbank offers all of that. We have conversations with you. First, we want to understand you. In fact, maybe let me take a step back. So the corporate and business banking division, you would have a relationship management team. Right? In that team, you have a relationship manager, which is someone like myself. I get to understand your business, your aspirations, your objectives, some of the strategies you want to implement, and we sort of have conversations around that and partner on that journey, right? That's the relationship management team. And then within the team, there's a service team. These are the guys helping you with your day-to-day operations, your daily statements, your queries. They're the ones on the ground daily helping the staff to move the business forward. So we try and offer a holistic approach to business, and we try and partner. I think I've said this so many times because of how important it is. I think Nedbank is really trying to partner with businesses.
Okay, so what would be the top reasons for a loan to be rejected, the franchise loan to be rejected?
Primarily, it would be affordability, which is consistent with all loans. We do go through a vigorous credit assessment. Like you said, lending money is risky.
Yeah.
So during the credit assessment, we look at the affordability, expected cash flows, and all of that. So primarily, that would be a reason for it to be rejected. But even then, we really do try and see what can be done before we just get to a straight out rejection.
So do you also consider the location of the store? For instance, you made an example of McDonald's. So do you look at the location where that franchisee wants to place it? Rural areas, you know, we know that a lot of people in town are familiar with McDonald's, but this particular businessman wants to place it in a rural area. Do you also consider that?
Yes. So the bank will assign a value to the franchise, or an expected value, and that value incorporates things like that, like location, the franchise type, historical performance of franchises, similar franchise businesses, and all of that. So Nedbank then assigns a value to that so that we can also quantify, especially for the collateral conversation. You want to be able to quantify that, so we do attach a value.
Yeah, still on the risk factors, Nozi. So what happens if the franchise fails? Yeah.
Like with all other businesses, if you do take the financing and you are facing financial trouble, leading up to the point where it is a dire situation, the bank will try and save the business before it fails, right? So there's ways, there's reports that are monitored daily within the banks, and there's also ways that credit can tell that a business is now in financial strain. Right? When it starts to become in financial strain, they'll speak to your relationship manager, we'll start to engage, find out what the problem is, find out how we can solution before it gets to a point where it's at a dire situation. So a lot of the time, and this is consistent with all types of loans, you'll find that you can remedy the situation before it is far gone. So we really take that process of remedying seriously. And we try to make sure that as the financial experts, there's triggers and there's instances or activities that we can see that indicate the financial strain. We deal with that. Hopefully we don't have to go far in the process. But if we fail to deal with that, I think that's where conversations now around the collateral that you put in come into play and all of that. But that's not a pleasant conversation, so we'd rather manage it before that.
Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, your potential franchisee are just thinking that is such a huge investment, quite scary. So what's the first step, you know, to go to in order to get this deal? You know, do you speak to the franchisee owner? Yeah. What's the process, you know, to have a successful franchise loan?
So you would speak to the franchisor and decide on your licensing and all of that. Once you have that process in place, we are always ready to have a conversation with you. In fact, as you're engaging the franchisor, you can start to engage the bank too, so that we walk the journey together. And then as it unfolds and plays out, we are then ready to finance. When we need documentation as you go along, you're able to give it to us on time, and it speeds up the process too. Because you normally want to set up the business and operate and get it going.
So it's a process that takes, what's the duration of the whole process?
I would say it's difficult to put a timeline to it, because there's other delays, especially when there are other people involved in the process. But I would say in a month, if everything went well, everything should be ready to go.
All right. Lastly, contact details and, you know, particular documents that franchise borrowers would want to come with.
Okay. Contact details. Corporate and business banking is located in Matsapa at the Matsapa Lifestyle. So you can always come through, have a conversation with the banker, even as you're developing the idea. We're happy to have that conversation with you. Or you can call us through our help desk on 3278 1000. They will link you with someone, a relationship manager, like myself or any other of my colleagues, and we can have that conversation with you. And we're also available on social media, on all our platforms. You can send a message there, and then we'll have the conversation now about the documents that you need to bring, give you the full checklist and guide you through the process.
All right, thank you, Nozi. Well, there you have it, franchise banking, Nedbank franchise banking. For more details, do contact Nedbank Eswatini or visit any of their branches countrywide. Let's go for an ad break. Sabia Kodamanja. All right, welcome back. And now for our final segment, the market analysis with Sifiso Nsibande from Nedbank Eswatini. A very good afternoon, Sifiso. Thank you for coming through on Nedbank Business Watch. So to start off with markets today, we know that the US and Iran have officially signed the peace agreement. What is the impact of the two countries having this peace agreement?
Yeah, thank you for having me once again. Yeah, so I think a piece of good news coming out of the US-Iran war, because I mean it's been long anticipated, on and off for quite a while. So basically what actually it does, it sets the path for a 60-day agreement or negotiations to actually have prospects of ending the war on a long-term basis. So it's only for 60 days. But I think it is bringing sort of a reprieve, because what we are going to be seeing is there was a 14-point plan which is going to be part of the negotiations. One of them being the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, which is where 20% of the world's oil actually passes through. So now that it's open, we're anticipating that, you know, there will be full restoration in terms of passage through the Strait of Hormuz. And already we've seen the price of oil actually coming down. So one of the things that we are looking forward to and anticipating is the reduction in the price of petrol. So it's going to be cheaper for the consumers when you go to the petrol pump. So we are also looking at an anticipation of maybe the inflation number coming down, because if you notice, since the war started, there has been escalation in the price of petrol, which resulted also in the price of food going up. And inflation then started going up, not on the demand side, but on the supply side. So what it means is inflation is going to be anticipated to come down. And then when that happens, then maybe even the central bank will start anticipating, or rather not being too much hawkish in terms of hiking interest rates, because it becomes too much expensive for the consumer. Because one of the things that we actually saw coming out of South Africa is that the consumer confidence has actually come down. It plunged drastically. It's at the levels that we haven't seen since 2025. So what that means is consumers are no longer going to be excited, or rather they will be saving more money than actually spending. And if you're saving more money than spending, that means you don't have confidence. I mean, you would rather just cut off on the necessities so you can have more money to pay down the debt. And if that happens, even the suppliers are not going to be investing because there isn't much demand. And that results in actually low economic growth, which is what the central bank is always going to be struggling with in terms of making a good balance between fighting inflation and also encouraging economic growth. Because you don't want to hike interest rates and hurt economic growth, because then it will lead into a situation that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, right. So as you say, the agreements is good news to us as consumers, and you're expecting fuel prices to drop down. When can we expect these adjustments?
Yeah, so it's a good question. We're expecting that probably in the month of July. There's not going to be a reduction as much as the hikes, by the way.
It always happens like that.
It always happens that way, isn't it? So there's going to be, one of the forecasts, there will be probably a more reduction in the diesel price, maybe about $3 per liter. And then maybe also a 1 lilangeni reduction in the petrol for now, which is, it comes as good news. But of course, it's not low enough to go back to the levels where we were in. Hopefully, we would get to the position that we were in. We don't know, but I think for now we can actually anticipate that in the month of July there will be a reduction in the price of fuel.
All right. So on that note, let's go through our numbers today and take a look at currencies this afternoon and how the US dollar is trading how the Lilang is trading against the US dollar.
Yeah, some interesting things were actually playing out in the currencies. If you look at all three major currencies, the Euro, GBP and the USD, they are always strong against the rand, and mainly because the rand is actually an emerging currency, so which means all the three major currencies were actually strong against emerging currencies for a couple of reasons. One being the news that's coming out of the US is that the US has actually taken a hawkish stance. It's better when the central banks are taking a cautious approach or a cautious stance in terms of interest rates. But when it's a hawkish stance, they're actually saying interest rates are going to be on an increasing environment. In other words, we're expecting a couple of interest rate increases in the US. What that means is it strengthens the dollar and weakens the currency like the rand. So that's why we're actually seeing it coming under pressure. And also, if you look at the price of gold also, we'll see when we get to gold, it's the same thing. Gold has actually come under pressure because of the hawkish stance that the U.S. government is actually yes. So now it's actually $4,000 US dollars per ounce. It was actually around 4,300 last week when we reported. So it's no longer a safe haven. In other words, they are going for instruments in the U.S. because they're seeing that the emerging economies are actually going to be suffering because of the hiking interest rate environment. And if you look at the price of oil, as I've already highlighted, we're coming from around 101 during the war. Last week when we reported it was 79, 78. Now we are at 72, which paves the way for a petrol fuel price reduction come the month of July, at least the month of July.
Okay.
Maybe towards the end of the month of July or early August. Yeah, it remains to be seen, but we are expecting that there will be some form of, a reprieve, amongst the consumers in terms of the price.
Okay. So moving on to equities this afternoon, what do the figures tell us today?
Yeah, so equities also, the sell-off is actually something that is totally different from what I've just been reporting for the last few minutes. What I actually saw is in Asia, there was a sell-off amongst the, equity, I mean the tech stocks, in particular, the microchips. So what happens is the South Korean regulators, they issued some warning statements to say they are worried that the inflation in terms of the surge in the performance of the stocks was actually creating a bubble. So those news sort of rattled the equities in Asian markets, but then it caused a global ripple effect in the rest of the stock exchange, including the S&P 500 and also the FTSE. So it's not largely because of various stocks. It's only on the tech stocks, which came down just because if you look at the South Korean stocks, they actually came down 10 to 12%. So it affected the rest of the tech stocks all around the world, including in the JSE in South Africa. So that is the reason why we are actually seeing all of them red today. But then we think that those who are moving out of tech stocks are going to be moving into defensive stocks. So it's still an environment where you can actually purchase. We're actually in an environment where you can still purchase defensive stocks and be able to expect that there will be an increase in the performance of the various indices in the stock market.
All right, just before I let you go, a minute or two, shocking news we received yesterday. British Prime Minister has resigned.
Yes.
What's going on in the UK?
Yes.
All these prime ministers are resigning.
Yes, indeed.
Is it a hot seat? The seat is hot.
It's amazing you say that. Actually, in the last 10 years, they've had 7 prime ministers.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that each prime minister in the UK lasts probably, 1.5 years. Yeah. So the politics in Britain are unforgiving. It's not just about the voters. It's also support within your own political party.
Yeah.
So if you don't get support from within your own political party, more likely it's going to be a disaster. You're going to be walking out. So that's what happened with Keir Starmer. I think the bad news that was surrounding him, such as the resignation of Peter Mandelson, who was set to be affiliated with the Epstein files, and a couple of other ways of how he has handled some of the political or topical issues in the UK, have actually caused them to lose, should I say, confidence in him, as a British Prime Minister. So you're not going to last if that happens. That's why he found himself actually resigning. And even his predecessor, it was the same thing. That is how they come and go. So we don't know how. There's one that's called Mr. Burnham. He's just been elected as a member of Parliament. He's actually being considered as the next person that will actually run for the elections, because they will now make nominations, and then in the month of July, they will have a new person actually come into power again. Who will be the next Prime Minister leading the Labour Party for now, up until their term is over and they go into voter elections again.
All right, thank you, Sfiso, for your insights. Always appreciated. We've come to the end of our program. It's 2 minutes before 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, worry not, you can still watch this episode on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. And if you still need more information on a Nedbank franchising, visit any of their branches countrywide, or do contact them on their socials, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We'll see you again next week, Wednesday at exactly 2 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.